to be able to put a park in there. In most cases, when a development, nowadays when a development is built, the developer builds the parks to their completion. And that's how a lot of our parks get built. And the legless lizard was a piece of land that we adopted from East Bay Regional Park District. Again, it's a similar situation. It wasn't a dump from the county, but it's something that was not required of the developer at the time, which occurred before incorporation. So, however, staff has found a couple of grants, enough to do the initial phases of each of these parks. But the real big question here that's really in front of us is, why should we proceed if we don't have a district, a landscape and lighting district in these two areas that can support the maintenance? Because in every other area in the city, as we create neighborhoods and developments, when they're developed, we work with the developer to establish a landscape and lighting district, and out of each and everybody's property taxes, there's the money there to maintain their neighborhood parks. These two neighborhoods, one, the legless lizard does have one, but it's just not enough. Teakwood has no district at all. And what I recommend is that, let's seek more public input, come to, strive to get to a point where we've got a master plan for each one, but let the neighbors know that we can't proceed unless they are willing to put up their $50 to $100 a year each. Staff can do the calculation and figure out what the actual numbers are, but I don't believe it would be that significant, because I tell you, the people that are buying the brand new houses in Oakley right now are paying a whole lot more than those that have lived here 10, 20 years, or even 5 years for that matter. And these neighborhoods, the county never imposed that on them. But it wouldn't be right for the entire city to be contributing to a neighborhood park. If it's a community park, that's different. But for a small neighborhood park, just like the rest of the city, everybody else in the city pays their fair share for their local neighborhood park. I don't think we got to proceed in actually building these, designing them, getting public input, getting their, and that might be a good time to also explain to them that we cannot go forward unless they, as a neighborhood, decide to participate in a special district. Ms. Anderson.
Just one more question of the architect. Looking at the legless lizard area, where the Tot playground is, I see there's a lot of shade trees around that, which are going to take a long time to be shade trees. Is there a reason why we don't just have a shade structure there? And why is that also pushed so far back?
We do have a shade structure if you look on the third page of the...
Is that what that is? Okay.
If you look where it shows the equipment that's proposed, you can see we are putting a shade structure over there.
I wasn't sure if that was part of it or just thrown in there.
The city has actually obtained a grant for the shade structure and the play equipment in this area.
Okay.
And then...
and why is it so far towards the back, towards the railroad tracks?
Because the railroad tracks will have a fence, so they won't be accessible, and we're trying to get it away from the road, which would be more accessible.
One of the comments from the residents was trying to keep it away from the road, and we're trying to center it more or less the best we could between the two, figuring that there was going to at least be a guaranteed fence along the railroad regardless. Wasn't sure about along the front edge of the street.
Okay.
Figured it was safer that way.
Thank you. And just for clarification, Mr. Mayor, the legless lizard area was a mitigation piece because of the endangered species. The legless lizard, it was never really intended to be a park. It was supposed to be fenced off to keep those legless lizards in. Okay. Just want to make sure.
Which the other end of the park actually is that we're not showing.
So I think it's great that we're looking at trying to do something with that area, and this phase area would certainly work, and I totally agree. We need to get a little bit more input and find out if the neighborhood is really going to support this. So, because the construction documents are an important part, but they're not important if we're not going to be able to fund it. Thank you.
One suggestion that we had a discussion, if there's not money for maintenance or much maintenance, that the lawn accounts for a large part of the maintenance. So if you wanted to go forward with the play equipment and pathway system without putting in the lawn, that might be a suggestion too.
Mr. Nix?
Clarifying question, since these are grants, do we not need to use the money or lose it?
Yes, there may be other opportunities to move those funds too. We need to get back with HCD and discuss that with them. This last suggestion that Cordy made, I think, is perhaps a good one that we could further evaluate with the residents as you're suggesting. It appears there's a consensus we get more input. What if this first phase, unless they're willing to pay for more, be merely a decomposed granite pathway with a play structure, with a shaded play structure? Maybe that's it until or unless they vote for more. And that way we would still be able to use grant funds for those elements. So if we have that opportunity to meet with the residents and bring back more input, get their feel for a potential, we may come back and suggest something even scaled down more than phase one, but still do something here that would not cost us much at all on an annual basis.
It might be a good idea to give the public a taste that there is something that can be done and show them with more money we can do more. But I definitely want to include the lighting landscape idea because that gets more buy-in from the rest of Vintage. When they can see something, they get out of it as well. Because nobody likes driving down that road and seeing that deteriorating fence. That's pretty bad.
No, I think we definitely ought to look at creating a district for the Teakwood Inn and enhance the one on Vintage. I'd rather not just do it halfway and give them a trail. I hear what you're saying, but I think we need to convey this information to those neighborhoods and let them understand. And if I didn't have a park and it only cost me $50 a year, I'd be more than willing. But they've got to make that determination, not us. Do we have enough input for staff?
That would be my question, Mr. Mayor, interrupting again. If there is anything that is sketched now that the council feels like if the resources were there and if the residents were willing to pay for it, is there anything offensive to what's been proposed or any other suggestions, just that we gather further input? Because that would be the direction we have now. If there's anything that's here that's not going in the right direction, we'd like to know that tonight.
Well, frankly, I'd rather see a senior center in the basin, but the consensus isn't there for that, and I think we're nearby it.
I would like to see the basketball area in the Teakwood considered. It says that's an alternate. I think that's an important part of first phasing. So it's already drawn in there as an alternate. I think that's a really important part for a multi-age approach to that area. In the legless lizard.
Sorry, basketball and legless lizard, or
in the legless lizard area.
That's for both parts.
Yeah, because that I could agree with, but not Teakwood. Thank you.
Okay. I think you've got all the input you're going to get for tonight. Thank you. Item 5.2, resolution supporting the Contra Costa County Delta platform. Yours truly, the mayor. As the staff report indicates, in 2006, the governor gave a directive and assigned a task force, the Delta Blue Ribbon Task Force, to analyze the deteriorating conditions in the Delta. The Delta is all but, the ecosystem is all but collapsed at this point. And the governor, in his wisdom, assigned this task force to study the situation and come up with a strategic plan to deal with it. They're now in their fourth draft, and I believe they might end up with a fifth before the end of October. But by the end of October, they are scheduled to submit to the governor a strategic plan to solve all the problems of the Delta. We know that's not going to quite be the end result because mankind is not perfect. Nonetheless, there's a number of concerns that many of stated from all over California. More locally, our County Board of Supervisors have created a, who's that? A Delta platform, a list of issues and concerns, and we have all had a copy of that in our FYI. Hopefully we've all read it. At the last month's mayor's conference, the issue was on the agenda, and every mayor from the 19 cities of Contra Costa County voted to approve supporting that platform. And we have it before us tonight, a resolution of the City Council to support that platform. Are there any questions, concerns, or a motion? It's not a perfect platform, okay? I've read it. I gave input at one of their workshops, some of which they did include, by the way. It's one of the rare opportunities we have to see eye to eye between council or county and city. But there is very little, well, there is no negative input at the mayor's conference. Ms. Anderson.
I think it's a noble effort and a worthy document to draw attention to our concerns. And I appreciate that you brought this forward. And with that, I would like to adopt the resolution, move that we adopt it for supporting the county's Delta water platform.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5.3, continued from September 9, 2008, resolution approving the selection of a child care development proposal from Christian Care Development Company for 95 Laurel Road. Ms. Mason.
Good evening. This staff report was continued from the last City Council meeting held on September 9th regarding the selection of a development proposal for 95 Laurel Road, which is will be deed restricted for child care uses in perpetuity. The only modification to the report this evening is Exhibit F at the very back, which at the request of the council was a site utilization summary was performed by our Community Development Director for your information.
We do also have two public comment cards on this. Are there any questions of staff at this point? Okay. According to the notes, I have been asked to read the attached comment, so I will do that. This is from Rick Lafayette. Please read attached to the City Council. My name is Richard Lafayette, and I'm a co-owner of Delta Kids and the former Delta Kids Center on Delta Road. We are not opposed to Celebrations Christian School being awarded the daycare site located at Laurel Road and Highway 4. We believe that they are most likely a fantastic facility and would be an asset to this or any community. We also wish the best of luck to the winner of the proposal and hope they have many years of service in the city of Oakley. We are concerned with the following areas. At the last meeting, we were told that the two proposals were completely separate proposals, and that's the way the council had always meant it to be. Then why was Delta Kids the only daycare to actually turn in two separate proposals? I was told that the other two candidates turned in their land and grant proposals together. That is not how separate proposals should be handled, especially since they had two different due dates. How can you propose a religious facility to a community that is not 100% affiliated with that religion? How does this benefit all the residents in the housing tract that this daycare has been earmarked to serve, as well as the rest of the community, if they are of different religious beliefs? Also, if anyone on staff is Christian, does that make this a conflict of interest? We know that we didn't make any friends in the redevelopment department during the closing of our center because we felt and still feel that the City of Oakley has some responsibility in the situation. I know that when we asked about the expanded propane tank, that the city was able to find a permit for a foundation for a propane tank, but was never able to produce a permit for the actual tank itself. I wonder if anyone has taken the time to investigate any further. I bring up this point because of the grades we received on our proposal. The lowest grade of 37 came from a member that we dealt with back during the closing of our center, and the highest of 85 came from a member that had nothing to do with the situation at all. Just makes you wonder how two people can come up with numbers so far apart. That's a difference of almost 50 points. Just seems a little fishy to us. Please, last but not least, we know that Oakley and all surrounding communities need more reliable daycare centers, and know that this proposed facility will be a wonderful asset to the families and children of our community. Thank you for your time and attention to our concerns. Richard Lafayette. And the other one is also please read. This is from Mercury Lafayette, 412 Clearwood Drive, Oakley, California. I'd like to congratulate Celebrations Christian Center on the recommendation that they have received. They seem to be a great facility, and if they're chosen, I wish them the best. I'd like to address a few issues that have been brought to my attention by a few council members at the last hearing. Rick and I are very capable of building and operating a child care center. We had built and ran Delta Kids Center for 9 years, and it was a great asset to all surrounding communities. A council member stated, it's a huge investment. It's not a family in a home. It's a business and needs to be run like a business, end quote. I take offense to this. I have done both, in the home and outside the home. And yes, it is a big difference in more ways than one. I should know, since I have invested $750,000 in Delta Kids Center, but again, apparently my experience of 19 years in the field does not qualify me as a candidate. On the contrary, in speaking with your redevelopment department 1.5 years ago, they thought it would be nice to get a prospective applicant out of their home to build and operate their own facility. I would like to ask the council, how is it that the redevelopment department can recommend a religious-based preschool facility? I feel that the community, the home builder that gave this property to the city, and the home buyers that put their tax dollars into this grant would need a facility that's more universal. What is needed is a facility that can offer all ages, especially infant and toddler. I would also like to know if church-state separation is an issue when it comes to what the City of Oakley has offered by way of the homeowners' tax dollars to be given to a religious school. A conflict of interest has also been a concern of mine. I'd like to know if anyone on the staff that recommended a Christian school has ever had their children attend Celebrations or any other Christian school. Sincerely, Mercury Lafayette. Okay. I understand we have another one in process. Or two. Tina, would you like to come up and speak? And forgive me, I refuse to try to pronounce your last name until you tell me how to pronounce it.
It's Dagry.
Dangry?
Dagry.
Dagry.
Yes.
See, that's easier than it was.
That's easy.
Thank you. If you would state your address, and you already stated your name.
My address, 565 Bartlett Court in Brentwood. Is that it?
Yes.
I don't remember all the issues that were brought up in the letter, but I do want to say that we are a Christian school, but at least half of our families, do not attend church. We serve every religion. We have families from all backgrounds. And the other thing that I remember was, as far as the proposals that were turned in, they were 2 separate proposals we turned in on 2 separate dates.
I'm not sure what other, did you have any questions as far as that letter goes?
Don't, other than, well, I'll bring up my questions with the city attorney when you're done.
Okay. That's all I can remember.
Thank you very much. Sherman, I want to take a guess. Balch? If you could please state your name and address and let us know what you have to say.
My name is Sherman Balch, 6010 Aliselle Street, Pleasanton, California. I'm the board of directors of Christian Education Development Company, doing business as Celebration Christian Preschool. One easy item, there's a typo on the resolution. It's Christian Education Development Company. So if we get to that point tonight, that's corrected. I wanted the questions about the separation of church and state is a very good question, and that was one when we opened. We wanted to be part of our discussion good enough that people who were atheists or other religions, the reputation of the school would be good enough that they would consider sending their kids also. And we do have a non-discrimination policy on admittance of any children's, and I believe we have served all aspects of the community, and we continue to look forward to that. And so that was a very good question. I just want to reemphasize that part of it also. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Green, there's some issues that were brought up in this written public comment. Do you see any legal conflicts or problems there?
I do not. With respect to the church-state issue, we have discussed that internally, provided they execute a non-discrimination clause, which would be part of our agreement with them. And as they've stated, they have a non-discrimination policy that, in other words, the school would be open to children of all beliefs, including atheists in this case. So I don't see any problem there. I would also point out that their proposal does not actually take public money. It is the reverse. They're actually offering to buy the property from the city, and the agreement that staff would be negotiating with them would really be serving to try to ensure that the facility was actually developed and that the slots were provided to children in our community.
Thank you very much. Any comments or discussion from council? Mr. Nix.
Thank you. I have some questions of staff, and I have been sending emails with Mr. Montgomery, which I know he shares with the rest of the council, but that doesn't necessarily mean that anyone outside of the council has the faintest idea what's been discussed. So, Mr. Montgomery, perhaps you could give us some background with regard, for example, to the whole issue of whether or not Laurel Road was expanding or not expanding. You want to fill us in?
Certainly, as has been discussed with the city engineer via email from the councilman and myself, and we have copied you, it is very possible that a portion of the south side of Laurel Road that abuts this site will need to be dedicated. Not more than 10 feet. That alignment has not been set exactly. What we did and what was conducted by Ms. Willis was the exploration of the site to determine that if as much as 10 feet were exacted from this parcel, is there still enough space to build the building that has been proposed? And that has been confirmed to be the case, that up to a 10,000 square foot building could still be accommodated with, as Mr. Nix indicates, there is a good possibility that that curb line will move to the south and encroach into this property as much as 10 feet, at least on the western portion of the parcel. I think that's the question.
Yeah, that's part of it. The next part is somehow one applicant gets the information that it's going to happen and takes it into account, and the other applicants don't. And do we know how that happened?
I do not. If that occurred, I don't know if it did, but if it did occur, the fortunate aspect is the result. The ending result is it doesn't affect the size of the buildings that have been proposed by both Celebration and as the other applicants. All would fit within the parcel, even with 10 feet being extracted from the property.
Now, another issue is that, and this is a non-staff issue, so I'll turn my attention away from you for a moment. I have heard, and I would ask the mayor to confirm this if it's true, that there was a conversation in which the same applicant who was told about the building being moved over the road also was told to turn in a drawing for a smaller building. And I don't know if you're aware of anything about that.
I don't know about verbal, but I believe I recall on staff notes on the scoring sheet that it was indicated the building was too large. Is that what you're referring to?
No. This applicant was told the building was too small, or was too large, and they should turn in a smaller application because we weren't going to build a big building. And the information purportedly came from a council member, not from staff, so that's why I'm not addressing staff. So if you're not aware, that's fine. There's been some misinformation kind of floating out here, and that's my concern. The next issue does go back to staff, and that is with regard to notice. Mr. Montgomery, if either you or Ms. Mason can tell us how notice was given, in this case, to the public for this project.
Well, we discussed at the council meeting the RFP process. I believe we had 2 iterations that came to the city council with regard to what should the RFP say and so forth. Those were agendized meetings. You know, we publish or post rather in 3 locations and have our agenda on our website. So certainly people could have been aware that we were discussing daycare through that process. Subsequent to the authorization to proceed with the RFP, we submitted a press release to the newspapers, as well as included that within our website for a period of time. In fact, it's still on the website. We need to remove it, but it's an archived press release. As well as we sent Ms. Mason, a number of folks had expressed interest in the past on that parcel. We sent directly to them the RFP. Others phoned us and requested that we send it to them. And I'm just reaching for the Contra Costa Child Care Council is the other entity that we mailed it to directly, as well as to a broker who brokers child care sites that Ms. Mason became aware of through her dealings in economic development. I'm not sure that that was fruitful, sending it to that broker, but that's another person that we sent it to. The question you asked me earlier today for the benefit of the council is whether or not we sent one to every registered child care provider in the city of Oakley, and we did not send one to every single child care provider.
And we do maintain a list on the website of preschools.
That's my understanding.
Daycare providers. I printed out a copy. It doesn't include all of the infant care, for example, but it does include a number of the others. So, with regard to the Child Care Council, Ms. Mason, were they asked to send out any information to the providers since they're all licensed and all supervised by the Child Care Council?
The representative that we met with from the Child Care Council had done the study about the needs analysis, so we had met with them. They had offered to look over the proposals to make sure that we were, adequate with 95 Laurel Road as well as the grant. And so we sought feedback from them when we gave you the drafts. And in addition, we gave them a copy so that they could distribute to anyone that they felt that would be a good potential applicant for that site. So I don't know who they sent it to or if they sent it, but they were provided with a copy at their request.
And that's Margaret Jacobs out of the Concord, not Martinez office.
Concord, thank you.
And it didn't go out, which is one of those things. All right, with regard to the need, you referenced a study with regard to the need for child care within the city of Oakley. That study, I believe, goes back to 2006.
I believe so.
And more recently, we've had another study come before this council, presented by the YMCA, indicating that there was not a need for preschool, but there was a need for infant care. So we seem to have a bit of a contradiction there. That's actually why we approved the YMCA's project on the back of the Morrow piece. Do you know why there is this difference between the two?
My recollection is that the research is county-wide and it was broken down by jurisdiction. Theirs showed a need in infant care and school-age care for Oakley, not generally in the 2 to 5 age range. But that's, a typical daycare center provides 2 to 5, but you would want to see it augmented either with student age or with infant to supply some of the need for that demand. Obviously, there'd be a profit center in either one of those for a facility that offers those types of age ranges.
Okay. And that's all the, well, I guess there's one other question. And I don't know if this is more appropriately for the applicants. I don't know if there's anybody here from Maven, and I guess not. In their proposal, they reference a price of $350,000 for the land. In Celebrities, it's $304,920. Ms. Mason, why the difference? Do you know?
I think it's, we have an appraisal that was done on a piece of land ourselves that we did. It was well over a year ago that we did the appraisal, and I think there's, it was tough for people to come up with value on the land because it is still zoned residential. It does not have a commercial designation, even though, and Rebecca can feedback on this one, that daycare facilities are allowed to go into residential areas, but also allowed to go into some commercial areas. So I think there's the crossover of, do we give it commercial value or do we give it the residential value that's currently designated at? And so our appraisal that was well over a year old was significantly less than what the offer was.
Yeah, we have two different requests apparently willing to pay us more. Isn't that really what these are?
Yes, but that wasn't the only reason, or that wasn't the only criteria that the applications were judged on.
I understand. All right. I don't have any other questions of staff. Do you have some comments when we're ready for discussion?
Ms. Anderson, did you have some questions?
I'm sorry, I have no questions, just comments.
Then I guess we can go ahead and start commenting if you'd like to do that.
Thank you. The three applications that were before us, I can say that I certainly have gone through all three of them with a fine-tooth comb and done my best to make an objective revision and put an objective opinion forward. And to me, there is one that is clearly more outstanding than the others. Under professional qualifications, one lists all of the degrees and awards and everything that every one of the people in the team have in terms of a professional development and in terms of child care experience, and the similarity of what they have done and what they are planning to do in their development ability, I believe, is stronger than the others. I could go down, I believe in each one of these, one was a little bit stronger than all of the others. But putting everything aside, if I take a look at the financial ability, that is a very strong reason why I'm making the decision that I am making. I have fiscal responsibility to the citizens of this community. One of the applications is willing to not only build us a state-of-the-art facility and provide preschool and child care, which I will tell you, as a grandmother and watching my children try to find preschools is something that is a difficult thing to do. And as a teacher, understanding that the qualities that preschool teachers provide for students as they come into the kindergarten level is something we definitely need in any community. So looking at the financial area was important to me. With Celebrations, they're willing to build it, they're willing to purchase the land, and they're ready, they've got grants, and they're ready to go. With Delta Kids, they are wanting us, the city, to carry the loan and us to lease the property, and is trying to be fiscally responsible. I can't see that as being the best way to move forward, even if all else was equal. So I believe that, I'm going to try to say the name right, Christian Education Development Company, the application that they have put forward will meet our needs, will handle 144 children, and will be something that we can all be proud of.
Mr. Romick, do you have any comments?
As Ms. Anderson stated, we have a fiscal responsibility and a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that Oakley's best interests are constantly looked after and maintained. And although the selection process that staff used to determine which application was the best may have not been agreed upon by all of us as the best process in place, I still think that staff made the correct decision and selected the most appropriate, the group with the best ability to carry out what needs to happen on that corner, and for that reason, I'm supporting staff in their decision. Thank you.
Ms. Rios, do you have any comments?
I also went back through the applications, did my own scoring, made my own comments. And also visited Celebration Christian School because I was invited. I had no such invitation from anyone else. And I think it comes down to the financial responsibility that we have, that I have as an elected official, to make sure we don't get into a situation where we have to take over a project. We just can't. There's no money in the coffers to take over a project of this size. I was also impressed that the Celebration Christian School was accredited. I think that says volumes, that they went through the process of being accredited. I'm sure it wasn't easy. The schools are never easy to be accredited. And that struck a very professional note to me. When I looked at Delta Kids School, Delta Kids preschool childcare, as they went down, when I got to the financial ability and the terms of acquisition, it was that the city would carry the loan, and that was in their proposal, and that we would build the facility and lease it back to them. But we're not in a financial place to do that. We just can't, and we have to be able to not put ourselves in that place. And I feel the application that Celebration Christian Preschool or Celebration Christian Schools brought forward was a solid financial application, and because of that, I would support Celebration Christian School, and I believe they have the talent and the know-how, and they will be capable of putting a project of this size in place and serving our city for many, many years.
Mr. Nix, comments?
I do. I have a number of comments. With regard to this process thing to me, because fair process is how you get fairness. If you don't have a fair process, you don't wind up with a good result. If you pick the right person or the right, because in order for an entity to be successful, it must be judged as having operated in a fair manner and not an arbitrary. And concern about that in this particular case. And some of the things that I've seen inappropriate are simply unintentional. The gaps occurred. I'll start with there was very poor notice in the case. We had a general public that for child care to be a provider, audience. They were. 25 facilities in this, so in Brentwood, Child Care Council representative notify everyone. Meeting with somebody in Concord that no contacted by local and happy. They simply didn't know. These aren't that are on the agenda every maybe child care was, and obviously start The next part on this widening of the building is, and I don't know what to do about this, they say that they were told, don't turn in such a big proposal. And they're very clearly saying it wasn't staff that told them that. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying staff said that. But that affected their proposal. I'm not happy about that. It's a glitch, but clearly that was one of the deciding factors in many people's minds. Next, I discussed the scoring on this whole thing the last time. That was a sign of a process that was not working appropriately. We decided on points, scoring should occur at the start. It's a sign that this whole thing is a little bit not quite working the way it should, and process is important. Next, and I'm up to 5 now, I do believe the wrong need has been targeted. Our primary need is in fact infant care. It is not preschool. What I'm hearing is that preschools in this city are in fact suffering vacancies and laying people off because there is a problem. And somehow we're looking at a 2006 study and ignoring a more recent one that we used ourselves with the YMCA to approve infant daycare there. And I'm bothered by that contradiction. Next, no matter what we say, all 3 proposals are tied to a request for $500,000 in funding on a separate, supposedly separate grant proposal. It's really not separate. We're hearing it on a different night. We're going to vote on a different night, but it's not separate. All 3 have clearly incorporated into their proposal. And very clearly there are differences, qualitative differences between the 3 proposals. I have no question about that at all. I agree with that. Nevertheless, they aren't separated at all. And we have to ask, why are these proposals coming forward if not to get use of the $500,000 in taxpayer money? Clearly, that's the point. I think whatever we do, it is absolutely critical at this meeting tonight there be a complete divorcing of any awarding of any proposal for land from a separate grant of money. Otherwise, literally what we're doing is making the point that in fact they are completely tied together. And that is something that is not going to sit very well. It looks too much like a done deal was privately done, and that's what I most of all abhor. I don't want this city looking bad. I don't want this city looking like we did something unfair or untoward. Lastly, I come to the price issue. Of the 3 applicants, that's the easiest thing to judge them all by, frankly. Delta has no effective price. So it's very easy if we are going to deal with the issue, which I've heard announced repeatedly here, of fiscal responsibility, of fiscal prudence, looking out for the taxpayers. I totally agree with that. We go with the one that wants to give us the most money for the land. And that's not Celebration, and that's not Delta Kids. That's Maven. Their value is $350,000, substantially more than the $304,920 that we're getting on the other proposal. And that kind of takes me to the last point on all this. I think we have attempted to do, with all good intentions, in effect a beauty pageant for childcare. And it's been botched. Unintentionally, but it has. Far better if we simply want to get this piece of land out of our possession and into use as a childcare, to simply put it up for bid at a free auction that is fair and open to everyone, and sell it to the highest bidder with a child care restriction. If the council doesn't want to do that, then what it should do very definitely is sell to the highest bidder we have right here. Either one of those I can support, but I have a problem with the process as it's gone thus far. So I think we need to come down to what gets the best value for the taxpayers, and that's the money we get back in.
Ms. Anderson.
I am not going to get into an argument, but I do want to make a few statements. Our application says that the applicant will be judged on whether they can demonstrate experience in the development of a child care center facility, demonstrated experience in running a child care facility, project proposer's understanding of the City of Oakley's desires and general approach to the project, and how the proposal requirements established in the RFP are included in the proposal. While You are correct that Maven School is the highest land bid statement. They do not have experience with a child care facility. They have a plan, but not experience. So I'm looking at the application and I'm trying to objectively judge based on that. And also the note in the application, and this is why I cannot support totally separating the second grant, as you indicated. It says in the application for this, the City of Oakley recently adopted a child care development grant which potentially may be used for this project. And that is why we see the applicants have placed that in there, because we told them they could. And all three of them did. So I wanted to bring that up. And with that being said, I would like to make a motion. If I can please make a statement myself, and then certainly, I'd be more than willing to allow you to make a motion after that. Thank you. And I really do appreciate the civility that we've practiced tonight. This is the first time the city has done this kind of a process before. And I do believe that the consensus was very adamantly that the two processes of land purchase and a daycare grant shall be kept separate. And not pointing fingers at anybody, but as a whole, I believe that we botched the process. And actually, by virtue of the fact that we included the grant inside the land purchase is one example. And then as the applicants did include mixing those two items, we didn't accomplish what we set out to do. And I can go into more detail. I do agree with a number of things that Mr. Nix had stated, and I'm not going to restate them. But frankly, we made a mistake, and I think we ought to live up to that, stop everything, let's start over, let's reanalyze it and try to accomplish the goal and do it with a procedure or a procedure that supports the separation of the two items, or for that matter, make the statement that we are going to mix them. But it was, I think, made very clear at the last meeting that they are to be kept separately. So at this point, I couldn't approve going forth with this project at all without stopping and let's redo it. With that being said, do I hear a motion? Feeling that the process has been fair, that we have done the best that we can do, that the application was clear, and that there is an outstanding application before us that will bring forward something on that land that's been waiting for a long time. I move that the resolution be approved with the selection of the child care development proposal for Christian Education Development Company for 95 Laurel Road, and that the resolution reflect the correct name of the organization.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
I'm opposed. It is passed. Thank you very much. I do want to recognize that we had scheduled 8:15 for interviews for the position for Planning Commission. I think we've got a ways to go. What does staff recommend at this point? Should we try to finish this off and then put off the closed session, or?
I think so, unless there are any questions relative to the two staff reports, perhaps we could deal with those and then postpone the rest of the meeting until after the interviews, until after the special meeting. So perhaps if there are any questions specifically for Ms. Mason or Mr. Smith with respect to their staff reports, then we could defer the rest of the meeting afterwards, after the interviews.
Mr. Roman?
I have specific questions for Mr. Smith. Do you want to hold that now, or I'm just telling you?
Your call.
That I have questions, so that we can either bring them back later and go through the Planning Commission interviews now, or...
Are we hearing a motion to
I'll
proceed?
give you a motion.
To
let's go through the Planning Commission interviews now and then come back with staff in the closed sessions.
Second.
All in favor? All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Where is probably a good idea. We're going to take, forgive me, applicants, but we're going to take a 5-minute stretch and let some fresh air in.
I'd like the council to come back to the dais, please.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to make... We'd like to get this meeting started again. We're going to, as we had already mentioned, skip to interviews for the Planning Commissioner. Do we have some people missing here? Okay. With the passing of Eric Nunn, it's created a vacancy on the Oakley Planning Commission, and that's why we're in the process of appointing a position tonight. We've had 8 applicants return applications. One has notified us, Steve Nosenchuk, that he'd like to step aside on this. We've already interviewed one person that was not able to stay late tonight prior to the regular meeting. It was Mr. Pope. And it doesn't seem like we've got everybody here, but I'm going to go ahead and proceed. Okay, so we've got staff that'll go pick them out as needed. Okay, thank you. And if you are present in the room, what we've asked the applicants to do is, and they don't have to do it by law, but if you could please leave the room during the interviews in the Merlot conference room back there, just to keep everything fair and square as far as asking questions, because they are the same question. Don't tell anybody. This is a forced ranking system that we use that will hopefully keep things as objective as possible. And we are going to go in last name alphabetical order. I'm kind of a first name person, but I think that's probably more appropriate anyway. So we're going to start with Ana Maria Bustos.
Let them know they're alphabetical. Mayor, I think I'll use my button to advise you of the time frame. I'm trying to keep each one to about 15 minutes.
Right, I'd like to keep it to 15 minutes max.
I'll give you a light when we're getting within 30 seconds of that.
Okay.
Maybe we can reset her timer.
Good evening. My name is Ana Maria Bustos.
Thank you. What we're going to do, Anna, is we have a handful of questions. Each one of us will ask a question, and we're going to start from my left and go down to the end. And if you'd like to start, Ms. Anderson.
Welcome. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
What's your understanding of the relationship between and among the City Council, the Planning Commission, and the staff?
I think, I believe the most important role of the Planning Commission is to advise the City Council on planning matters and what is best for the City of Oakley. It's important that City Council, the Planning Commission, and staff work hand in hand to make a difference in what we all call home. So with us working together, anything is possible, and definitely we'll be able to address the planning matters for the City of Oakley, for the citizens of Oakley, in which we all call home.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Romick?
What do you feel is the most important contribution you can make as a member of the Commission?
Well, first of all, I've been a resident in Oakley for 3 years, and it might sound a broken record, but it's what I call home. As I mentioned in the application, I have no zoning experience, but my experience comes in the financial services and banking with respect to real estate and consumer lending, as well as loan servicing, customer service, internal audit, regulatory compliance, legislation, and project management. I think those experience and skills could bring assets to what we have today.
Thank you. What do you see as some of the most significant planning issues facing our community in the next few years?
Growth. As I mentioned, I moved to Oakley 3 years ago, and one thing that caught my heart was the small city setting of Oakley. So I happen to live off Neroli, Live Oak area, and to be quite frank, really, it's a little bit disappointing because there's a growing foreclosed properties in that neighborhood. So I'd like to assess how we're growing so fast, and with growth. It's a positive sign. It's by progress, but also comes crime and other aspects of community involvement.
Thank you. Ms. Rios?
Thank you. Could you compare and contrast the general plan to the zoning ordinances, and why are these two documents important to a planning commissioner?
To be quite frank with you, I'm not too familiar with those documents in detail, so I'm not, it's not my subject matter field, so I couldn't compare them at this point.
Mr. Nixon.
Yeah. Some general information and then a specific question.
Okay.
Some factors that could lead to a conflict of interest that would prevent you from participating in a decision include owning a business in the city, owning significantly more property in the city than an average resident, or owning any property located within the redevelopment area. And a separate question is, how many of those are there? But never mind that.
Well, I'll be more than glad to answer that. None.
Okay. Let me get to the question. Do you have any property ownerships other than your home, or any business or personal relationships which might be considered a conflict of interest in carrying out your responsibilities on the Planning Commission?
For the City of Oakley, no, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bustos, do you have anything you would like to add or enlighten us with?
I just wanted to share that I've been very active on the local, state, and national level. Quite frankly, I'm very proud to be back from Denver. I was a district-level delegate for Congressional District 10. It was an exciting time, and it was very special being part of history. Definitely this election here is very unprecedented, and I thought with my experience and backgrounds and the community involvement in both 3 levels of government, I can share that with the City of Oakley with my fellow citizens in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll be it.
Thank you.
Next would be Ann Corridan. Are they eating our candy? Rumor has it you all been eating our candy back there. Is that true?
Unless you have pictures, you have no proof.
Ms. Corridan, we're going to, each one of us ask you a question, and we'd like your response. And we're going to try to keep the whole thing to about 15 minutes and make it as painless as possible. With that, Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, Ann. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
What is your understanding of the relationship among the City Council, the Planning Commission, and the staff?
Well, the Planning Commissioners and the members of the Planning Commission make their recommendations to the City Council, who are ultimately in charge of making the final decisions. The Commission would use the staff as appropriate.
Thank you.
Mr. Romick.
What do you feel is the most important contribution you can make as a member of the Commission?
The most important thing I would bring to this commission would be my dedication to the city, and the fact that that is my main goal. I don't see this as a stepping stone. I don't see this as, there's no political motivation here. I want to help the city, and I love this city. This is where I want to raise my kids. They're 2 and 5. We're going to be here for the long run, and I want to ensure that this city stays the way it was when we moved in 4 years ago. A nice, small community. Yes, infrastructure does need to grow, but in a reasonable level, not turning it into basically a city. I love the rural aspect of it. I love driving down the street and having to go slow because you're behind a tractor. I love that. I would hate to see that change.
Thank you. What do you see as some of the significant planning issues facing our community in the next few years?
I would say one of the main issues would be traffic flow, congestion, really looking at what's being built and where it's being built and taking into account the traffic issues, which I think is a big concern for many of the citizens right now. Additionally, the rising number of foreclosures, I think, is a big concern. I don't know that anything can be done to address that, but it is a concern.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rios?
Thank you. Could you compare and contrast the general plan to the zoning ordinance, and why are these two documents important to a planning commissioner?
Well, the general plan is all-encompassing. I mean, it talks about land use and parks and recreation and traffic and circulation. I mean, it's a huge document. The general plan would take into account the zoning in its construction. I would say the zoning kind of complements the general plan. Does that make sense? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nix?
I'm going to read you some information and then ask a question.
Okay.
Some factors that could lead to a conflict of interest that would prevent you from participating in a decision include owning a business in the city, owning significantly more property in the city than an average resident, or owning any property located within the redevelopment area. So now the question. Do you have any property ownerships other than your home or any business or personal relationships which might be considered a conflict of interest in carrying out your responsibilities on the Planning Commission?
I do not.
Okay. Just own the one home?
Just own the one home.
Thank you.
I had a cough, so I turned the mic off. Lastly, do you have anything you'd like to say or comment on, or make a statement?
I just wanted to reiterate that my main focus is supporting this city. I'm a teacher. When my kids are old enough, I will be going back to teaching here in Oakley. I have a great number of experiences in different types of business before I became a teacher. I volunteer for a number of different organizations. I'm on the board for the Liberty High School Education Foundation. I want to give back to my community. That's what I want to do. I'm a mom first, I'm a teacher second, and I want to be a good citizen third.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next will be Leonard Lloyd. Good evening. Did you eat all the candy? There was rumors that you guys are back there eating our candy.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
That's okay. I was just trying to have some fun. What we're going to do, Mr. Lloyd, is each one of us is going to ask you a question. There's 5 of us. There's 5 questions, and then we're going to offer you an opportunity to say whatever you like, make a comment or statement. We'll start with Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, Mr. Lloyd. What is your understanding of the relationship among the City Council, the Planning Commission, and the staff?
Well, you know, it could be pretty complex, but more simply that the Planning Commission serves the Council, receives information from staff, makes recommendations to the Council. I don't know in Oakley whether some final decisions are made by the Commission or not. Where I worked, they didn't, so that would be new if that's the case.
Thank you.
Mr. Roman?
What do you feel is the most important contribution you can make as a member of the Commission? I think my relatively long-term residence here in Oakley, you know, for the community that it is. I've lived here over 20 years and watched it grow, and I have a real appreciation for its setting. It's quite unique alongside the river, the opening, the gateway to the Delta, and that's something I think should be included in as many decisions as it impacts.
What do you see as some of the significant planning issues facing our community in the next few years?
I'm sorry, Mr. Conley, I couldn't hear that. One of my hearing aids quit just out here, so.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, no problem.
What do you see as some of the significant planning issues facing our community in the next few years?
Well, I think a lot of conflicting priorities, wanting more stable and higher income for the city to support the services that are needed, and at the same time trying to preserve the old town and rural community, agricultural community, interaction, you know, with the Delta. I think those are often in conflict with each other and have to somehow be brought together.
Thank you. Ms. Rios?
Thank you. Could you compare and do a comparison and a contrast to the general plan? Let me start over again. I wanted to make sure it was loud enough for you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I think so far.
Okay. Compare and contrast the general plan to the zoning ordinance, and why are these 2 documents important to a planning commissioner?
The general plan, of course, is the overriding document that pretty much tries to direct all city decisions. Now, I could not hear the word before document. You said compare it to a specific document, and that word just I didn't get it.
Oh, okay. I'm just asking, you have the general plan, and you have the zoning ordinance.
Zoning, that's the word that
zoning
I didn't
ordinance, get. Okay. And just, why are these 2 documents important to a planning commissioner?
Right. Yeah, you know, I understand the zoning documents to be kind of secondary to the general plan in that the zones were determined by the purposes and objectives in the strategic plan, and so it's part of the implementation process.
Mr. Nix?
I'm going to read you some information and then ask you a question, okay? So, some factors that could lead to a conflict of interest that would prevent you from participating in a decision include owning a business in the city, owning significantly more property in the city than an average resident, or owning any property located within the redevelopment area. Okay?
None of the above.
That's good. All right, so here's a question. Do you have any property ownerships other than your home or any business or personal relationships which might be considered a conflict of interest in carrying out your responsibilities on the Planning Commission?
No, not at all.
Okay, just own one home? All right, thank you.
With that, Mr. Lloyd, do you have any comments or a statement you'd like to express?
No, I think I squeezed in what I have to offer in my responses, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Next would be Belinda McLean. And no, I'm not going to ask her about candy.
Almost to laugh this time.
Good evening, Ms. McLean. What we're going to do is ask you each of us will ask you a question. There'll be 5 questions. They're the same as we've asked everybody else. And after that, we'll ask you if you have anything to say, statement or comment or what have you.
Okay.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Belinda, for being here. You've been here from the very, very beginning.
Well, cheated.
My question is, what is your understanding of the relationship among the City Council, the Planning Commission, and the staff?
My understanding is that as a planning commissioner, I would be working with staff in reviewing, going through the review process for all developers and developments coming through to our city. With that, we come up with some kind of analysis or report to give to the council members, whether we are agreeing or denying this proposal.
Thank you.
Mr. Romanek.
What do you feel is the most important contribution you can make as a member of the Commission?
Well, there's quite a few, but I would have to narrow it down to my expertise, being that I have been with the municipalities throughout Contra Costa County for now 13 years and have enjoyed it. I can truly say I enjoy my job. I have not worked with the planning department per se, but I have worked in the engineering department for quite a few years and have established a relationship with that of the building as well as the planning department. So I do have a lot of expertise into the field of developments throughout our cities.
Good. What do you see as some of the significant planning issues facing our community in the next few years?
Oh, with the economy the way it has been and it's going to continue to be, it's pursuing getting more of the developers, whether it's commercial, industrial, residential, being subdivisions, whatnot, to proceed into our city limits for our growth, for our revenue purposes, but as well as for the community, for jobs, insights. Like I said, this economy is pretty much failing, and we do need to turn this around. With our sister cities developing and the redevelopments going on, Oakley, I see the potential in the same aspect of the growth, and I would love to be a part of that and see it through.
Thank you. Ms. Rios?
Thank you. Could you compare and contrast the general plan to the zoning ordinance, and why are these 2 documents important to a planning commissioner?
Seeing that I have, again, not worked with the planning division, the zoning ordinance, per se, I believe would be that of making sure that whatever site or what location that they falls within zoning applications, being whether it's, like I said, commercial, industrial, residential, and following through with those codes, limitations of what they have. And as far as the general plan goes, is to making sure, if I'm not mistaken, is overall aspect of within the city, of the general plan that is being implemented by the city in a whole. So,
Mr. Nix.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
First, I'm going to read you some information, and then I'm going to ask you a question, all right?
okay.
Some factors that could lead to a conflict of interest that would prevent you from participating in a decision include owning a business in the city, owning significantly more property in the city than an average resident, or owning any property located within the redevelopment area. So my question, do you have any property ownerships other than your home, or any business or personal relationships which might be considered a conflict of interest in carrying out your responsibilities on the Planning Commission?
I do not, sir.
Okay. I'm going to ask you. You said that you work with contractors and so on in other cities. Do any of them do business here?
That I'm aware of. I'm sure the smaller ones do. I know Underground is working with the AT&T project. I do do a project management with AT&T over with the city of Concord as well as the city of Pleasant Hill. So, you know, I would be a lie to say that I don't work with them, because that is part of my job, working with the municipalities, is working with developers and contractors that are within the Contra Costa area.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, do you have any comments or statements you'd like to express?
No, I just want to thank you all for allowing me to express myself, and hope you don't stay too long.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next would be Aaron Meadows. Aaron, what we're going to do is each one of us has a question for you. There's a total of 5 questions. And when we're done with that, we're going to allow you an opportunity to say whatever you like, and we're going to try to get it done in 15 minutes or less. So far, we're batting 1,000. With that, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight, Aaron.
Thank you.
I know you're having to stand instead